Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Welcome to the Tribe Podcast. Tribe is a resource podcast for entrepreneurs looking to build their entrepreneurial tribe. Over my years of working with business owners, I've realized that it's important to know who you need as a part of your network before you need them. Listen in as I ask my trusted resources the question you've always wanted answers to, but didn't want to pay to get. If you're new to your business or you're established and you're just busy, feel free to borrow my tribe as you build your empire. So my friend Tina Phillips is a coach. She's a sales coach and a business coach. I hesitate in how I describe her because no one really feels like they need a sales coach because you either A, don't realize you have a sales problem or could use some growth in that area, or B, don't think you sell anything. So if one of those things applies to you, just listen to this episode either way and just go with it. Okay, cool. So here's Tina Phillips talking about the top 3 issues that business owners face. Hi, Tina. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kristen, for inviting me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I'm excited for this episode.
You are? Why is that?
Why would you ever be excited by having a conversation with me? Well, I'm excited about the topic we're going to talk about, and I'm going to let you introduce it to our guests. But before we jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as you know, I work with a company called Trustpoint Management Group. I'm a partner there, and we really are what I would call sales and revenue growth coaches. And we really work with organizations who are looking to take their game to the next level. How do we upgrade our mindset? How do we upgrade our teams? How do we push our people to, or help our people to get better and to be the best that they can be? So I do that day in and day out. And you may ask me, how did I get into this business? Is that the next question?
I was going to ask you how you got into this business.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing is I used to be a client. And so one of the things I always share with people is that having been on the other side of the fence where I had a team of people and I was trying to figure out how do we continue to grow revenue with this team, I hired someone like me, and it really was life-changing for me and for my team.
That's awesome. So is that the reason you decided to get into the business?
I did. So once I saw a little bit about the impact you can have on people and how what we teach and what we help people really do can change the course of someone's life and really helping people get to where they really want to go and achieving more than that they thought they could, is just exciting to me. It was exciting as a manager in an organization to do that, but I felt like there would be a way that I could have a greater impact, especially on entrepreneurs, on people who are really, down in the weeds and doing the grind to get their business in a growth stage where they really feel like, hey, I can keep building on what I'm doing. So with that said, I decided at some point, I saw what my coach did and I'm like, I want to do that. So I did it.
That's really cool. So I feel like this is the part where I need someone cue a drum roll. Special effect. It's happening. Tina Phillips from Trustpoint Management Group is going to talk to us about the 3 areas where entrepreneurs make a mistake.
Yes, there's only 3, right? Actually, I would say it this way. It's the 3 pitfalls you can find yourself in when you're trying to build revenue and build a team to grow revenue. And, I would hate to say this, but it's true. A lot of people do it. And so what I want to make sure everybody feels like is, if I find myself in one of these pitfalls, that's okay. It happens. Right.
Yeah.
It's a matter of what are you going to take action on in order to get yourself out of it. So the first pitfall that I see is entrepreneurs can believe that they're the best salesperson. And here's what I would say about that. Most entrepreneurs are really good at selling their product because they're passionate about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes what I see the pitfall in is that they will do anything it takes to make the sell, right? They're in this growth mode. It's whatever I need to do. And some of the things that can happen is they may be willing to discount. They may be willing to cut the price. They potentially, one of the pitfalls can be they give away too much, right? They're so passionate about helping or doing or, whatever the product or service does for another person that they're willing to talk them through it, and they can lose business by giving too much free consulting away.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is they know how to do it themselves. Maybe they really are a great salesperson. They know how to do it themselves. So they have a belief that anybody else can do it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first pitfall that I see people can make in having beliefs or doing things that can set them up to really hurt them down the road.
So when you say because they're really good at it, they believe that other people could do it, what I'm thinking is I'm really great at financial planning and it's super easy. So obviously everyone else can do it too. So I should discount my rate. Is that kind of the mindset that you meant?
Yeah, they could do that. Or that's one way of looking at it. Like, okay, they could devalue based on the fact that they think it's easy and everybody else can do it, right? That's one way. And you find that a lot in the service business. The other way that you can see it is when specifically, it actually goes into my second pitfall, really not taking the time to figure out what kind of salesperson, when I'm starting to get to a point where, hey, I want to bring someone on so I can spend my time building the company and this other person's responsible for revenue generation. What can happen is their mindset is, I can do it, so pretty much anybody can do it. So they don't really have a good solid process on what it looks like to hire the right salesperson for their product or service, whatever they're doing, their company. So do you see how it can go two ways? It could go one way in the mindset of, hey, this is really easy, so anybody can do it, so therefore I'm going to discount, right? That's one mindset. The other mindset is, I've gotten my company to a level where I really need to bring somebody else on. I need to duplicate myself. And it's really easy for me to sell this product or service. So it's going to be easy for Joe Blow who's walking down the street to do it.
Right.
And what I would say about that mindset is I see more entrepreneurs do that. And so they have what's called non-transferable skills. They have the skill set, but they have no idea, once I've hired this Joe Blow walking down the street and brought him into my company, they're like, okay, go do it. And they don't have the skill set to say, here's how you really sell this product or service. They haven't taken the time, put in the effort to say, hey, what are the skill sets that this person would really need to have in order to sell my product or service? Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So a lot of times I work with entrepreneurs around that issue. How do we build a solid hiring and onboarding process in order to help this person be as successful as they can be in my company? And what's interesting is a lot of times they want to hire this person who's been in the industry, who has a lot of knowledge, who may have a lot of contacts, whatever the case may be. And they've been fairly successful at other companies. They're like, hey, I'm going to pay this person to come over to my company and knock it out of the park. And sometimes what can happen is they bring that person on, and what do you think might happen after they get the person on?
I'm thinking maybe that person wasn't that successful at the prior place that they would be open to leaving.
Yeah, that's right. They may get someone who maybe was mediocre, did okay, but wasn't the rock star that they thought they hired. So the best sales job that person did was on getting the entrepreneur to hire them. Right? So
you're making, yeah.
yeah. So then the entrepreneur is just frustrated and like, what did I just do? And because of, depending on where you're bringing that person in, you may have sunk a lot of resources into that, acquisition, so to speak. And then you're like, am I going to get my money back?
Yeah.
So I suggest that entrepreneurs really spend the time, take the time to build out, what does it look like? What is the person? What's the skill sets they need to have? What are the habits they need to have? What is it I'm really looking for? And that's a lot of times what I work with people on is, how do I get them on? And also, what are the signs I'm looking for in order to know this person's going to be successful, or that maybe I need to cut bait? Because here's the other thing that entrepreneurs do. This is an interesting one. They get emotionally attached to the other person's success, and then they don't cut bait fast enough.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Like, I brought this person in and I'm responsible for.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you take the ownership for their success. And that's a big one. And I get it. It's hard being, or it can be a challenge to be an entrepreneur and think, okay, I'm taking my business to the next level. I've gotten this business to this success. Now I'm going to the next level. And then you fall into that pitfall.
This is all making me sad.
It's making you sad. Well, here's the thing. The good thing is there's hope, right? This is the kind of stuff that we do day in and day out, is work with people who are, and it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you've grown your business, and you're in the middle market, it doesn't matter. What we find is sometimes these pitfalls happen in large companies as well. And this really leads to the third pitfall. And the third pitfall is you've grown your company to the next level. You've got several people on the team. And the biggest thing I see is when the entrepreneur gets to a point where they're still managing the sales team, they're still managing, the people in their business, and they fear giving up that control to someone else. And that can be a pitfall. And the other part of it is, we know when they get to that point where they're still managing everything and they really haven't, brought on leadership to help them grow the company, what can happen there is that they have too many things on their plate. And so guess what falls off? Want to take a guess?
Selling?
Actually, it's managing and holding your people accountable.
Mm.
So the things that I should be doing to make sure that people are being held accountable for the results and hitting their goals, we put that aside, because as entrepreneurs, that's not the fun stuff, right? That's really the things that we don't like to do. And so what happens is people start doing things their own way, and they start, maybe because we know that good salespeople aren't really great at following processes. So what happens
What do you mean?
is, you get to a point where you have a sales team, and let's say you've grown your sales team to 6 or 7 people, and pretty soon you walk in the door and you have 6 or 7 people doing 6 or 7 different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no consistent process on how we're going to go to market, or what we're saying, what our talk tracks are. Our people are just winging it. So those are the 3 pitfalls.
Yeah.
Did I just make you sad again?
Yeah, like I feel like that kid that got their hand stuck in the cookie jar.
That's right. Yeah.
You told me about my whole life. I think what you said earlier was dead on. Like, most people, this is happening to them in some capacity, and they feel like it's like they're the only one with this problem. Like, my business is special, and you have to have somebody really technical to sell it. Mm-hmm. Or like they have that same like head trash. Like, everyone has the same stuff. Like, I need someone exactly like me to sell my product, and a good salesperson should be able to manage themselves. Like, all of that stuff is just kind of swimming around in my head. Trash. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners who are at different stages in the life cycle of their business. Mm-hmm. And you're exactly right. Most of them feel like, hey, my business is unique. And certainly people do unique things. I'm not taking that away from them. Mm-hmm. But there are some proven processes and proven ways to develop a solid sales process and a solid way of managing your people that can really fit a lot of businesses. Certainly there's some tweaking you have to do. And that's what we do. We work with our clients to do those types of things.
That's really good to hear. It's good to hear there's hope.
You're not alone, right? You're not alone.
You're not alone.
There are people out there who are willing to help you. I know you brought Jordan on, and when we talk about process, right? She's like the process queen. And what's interesting about that is that she really understands how, and I would take a guess that if Jordan was on this call, she would say, you're exactly right. It doesn't matter what industry or what product or service you're selling. There are proven ways of doing things that can really help you propel your business to the next level.
Yeah. She said, she gave us like 3 different sections that your process is in, either like attracting or doing the work and offboarding. Those are not the words she used, but we can go back and listen to her episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
True.
everyone's business has the same, you have to get a client, you have to do the work for a client, and then you have to offboard or maintain a client. So we all have those 3 things kind of in common.
That's right. And, within those 3 things, there are processes that have to be set up. And the biggest thing I would say is, if entrepreneurs, depending on where you're at, if you're just starting out and you want to get to a place where, hey, I want to hire and build a sales team, that's one part of your business. If you're at that spot, the big thing that I would say is know your talk tracks, understand, what are the things that you do and say that attract people to you, and then how do I get them through the process? How do I close? What are the things that really seem to work for you, right? That's one way to look at your process. And then identifying what are the things that are not working for you. And then, that might be where you would reach out for some help to say, okay, what do I need to be doing differently? Because sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. And so sometimes getting a third party to help you look at that certainly can be helpful. The second thing is, if you're at a point where, hey, I want to hire someone or want to start building the sales team, well, then it's looking at hiring, onboarding, and then also what are the things that they're going to be held accountable to. So the activities that I want them to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that is going to propel them to success. Those are the things you need to be looking at. How do I build that in order to get that person to success? And then if you've got a sales team and you're at a point where, hey, I'm not doing a great job of managing them, then the same thing happens with who do I bring in that really is going to help me hold this team accountable and propel them to the next level.
So if you're, let's say, a solopreneur right now and you want to hire a salesperson, how do you know when it's the right time?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's tricky, right? Because you have to think about, the first thing I would say is, if you're a solopreneur, are you paying yourself? Because you've got to take care of you. And a lot of times what I see is sometimes entrepreneurs can not take care of them, and then that can create some resentment and different things. The second thing is you have to look at, okay, what would it take for me to get, what revenue level would I feel comfortable and secure that if I brought another person on, I can support that person, because they're not going to be, depending on your sales cycle, it could take a while for them to, build up the pipeline for them to close deals. So you have to take that into consideration. And you have to say, okay, what risk? You have to understand your risk tolerance for bringing someone on, because it is a risk. And so understanding where your risk tolerance is, making sure that you're financially in a place that it makes sense. And then also understanding that it doesn't mean I'm not going to have to sell, because in the interim, when you're onboarding and getting this person to a point where they can just, you can set them loose, so to speak,
right?
Somebody still has to sell. And so making sure you've got that covered, then typically if you feel comfortable, it's in your risk tolerance, then I would say, then you start the process. And here's what we're finding in the market today. Because of the market, and specifically in our area, it is a challenge to find really good salespeople. Be aware of that. So just because I put an ad out today doesn't mean I'm going to find someone today or tomorrow or the next week. It could take some time. So just be aware of it.
So it seems like there's an element of financial planning that goes into it, just making sure that you make enough money in the business to take care of yourself, like you said, and then making sure you can sustain another person's salary. I'm thinking about a lot of clients I have there in the service industry that pay maybe interns or something like that, commission only. So I think some people have thought that's an option, but also realizing that it might take a while before you can find someone. I hadn't really even thought about that. You would think you just go on LinkedIn and pick somebody up.
Yeah, it doesn't actually really work that way. I have clients who've been looking for salespeople for between 3 and 6 months.
Wow.
And in some industries, it can take longer. I have one client who's in a kind of specialty niche market, and they're always looking for salespeople, always, because the challenge with them is they do need someone who has some technical expertise. And so those people, it's kind of a niche industry. So there's only so much, there's so many fish in the pond, so to speak. So
Right.
you have to be aware of that. And, if from a company perspective, this is where companies get into, maybe I create my own internship and, how do I develop, young talent in order to get them up to a point where, hey, they can be my next salesperson or whatever the case may be. So there's lots of strategies out there on how you build a good, solid sales team. But I think one of the things you mentioned that I want to reiterate is your compensation package has to be really clear, and it should support what you want them to do. So you're exactly right. There are commission only jobs out there. We're finding more and more that commission only is being, for certain industries, a lot of industries do a base plus commission. So with that, you just have to be aware of what's the industry standard, right? What are my competitors doing? What are other people doing in the market? And then building your compensation plan to support attracting that right talent, and support also what are the behaviors that I need them to do. So a lot of people just pay on results. Some people pay on, especially if I'm hiring someone new, I'm going to pay them for the behavior of what I need them to do so that they can build up into the result.
I like the idea of that, because I know if you're getting somebody that's not maybe familiar with your industry and they're expected to go out and sell a certain number of widgets and they're still trying to learn what a widget is, you could pay them for the behavior, like maybe how many appointments they have.
That's right. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like
and their plan should be built that way, right? How many prospecting calls do you expect them to, what's their prospecting? We call it a cookbook. I think you've heard that term, but really what is the metrics they need to have in order to build out that success? I mean, it's a little bit like your financial plan, right?
Right.
Or your budget. What are the things I need to do in order to hit my financial success, or, make sure that I'm staying within budget? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't do that. They leave it up to the salesperson. And the biggest issue we see in sales is that most salespeople, if you ask them what the worst part of their job is, guess what they'll say?
Phone.
Yeah, prospecting. You name it. Cold calls, or, some people don't like to network, whatever the case may be.
The worst part of my job, and I was like, what do I not like?
Phone. So, yes. And so what happens is there's going to be some reluctance to doing it, because none of us like to do the things we don't like to do.
Yeah,
so you have to create a plan and hold people accountable to that plan.
Right. So it's been really useful for me, but I already know how to get a hold of you and all of that. I want to ask you, before I ask how people can connect with you, I would like to ask if you have a story that you'd like to tell us. So a funny story, a client story, a story about your really bossy Shih Tzu, Maggie, anything else that you want
to share. Which would you like to hear? A funny story? Because I have lots of those. So I'll tell you, I am an animal lover. You know that, because we have that in common. I'm a big softie with especially dogs, as your dog Charlie knows. Yes. So, well, with that said, because I'm an animal lover, growing up, we always had lots of animals around the house. That's probably why I am the way I am today. And I grew up overseas in the Philippines. And from the time I was about 4, I think, until I think about 16 or 17, we had 2 monkeys as pets. One was Cheetah and the other one's Hugo. And Hugo was my favorite. He was just the sweetest monkey you've ever seen. And both of them were given to us as gifts. And so this is not funny. It's kind of actually sad, but
these have been going that way.
They go to the sad part. Right. Hugo was just fantastic. But Hugo didn't like my brother. So I had one brother who, for whatever reason, all the animals did not like. And I think he was just kind of ornery and he picked on him a little bit. So anyway, so my brother was playing out in the front yard and we had these little firecrackers that you would like strike on the concrete and then they would pop around. Well, Hugo, my brother let one of those or struck one of those really close to the cage and it popped up and Hugo grabbed it. Well, it was hot in his hand, so he ate it. And so, yeah. So Hugo was no longer. It was really sad. You know, we felt horrible. My brother felt horrible. He feels horrible to this day. So I like to tell the story to remind him of that. And we accuse him all the time of killing our favorite monkey. But yeah, I love animals and I do love my dog, Maggie. And I also love your dog, Charlie.
Thank you. I must say, though, I have been telling people, like, tell me a funny story, and they have been taking these tragic. Some of them are like, actually, the client lost a lot of money. It was really sad, but it was a really good lesson.
Really good. Yeah. Well, I have some of those stories. I could tell you a story. This actually is a good story. I work with a lot of clients and at different levels, right? And I had a client who we started working together and he had someone on his sales team that was a really good high performing salesperson, meaning, let me clarify that, they were hitting their numbers. The company relied heavily on teamwork. He was not a good team player. And so when we started working together, we would talk about this person and there was a lot of coaching involved. And to make a really long story short, one day we were having a really candid conversation and there were several incidences where this person didn't really work in a team, was very me focused. And sometimes this person would hack off the prospects as well. So long story short, the manager said to me, you know, I just need you to tell me what to do. And this was my response to him. I said, it's a really good question. I'm not sitting in your shoes. I certainly am not here on a day-to-day basis. So here's what I would ask you back. In your gut, what does your gut tell you to do? What do you think he said?
He wanted to fire him.
Yeah, he wanted to fire him. And so I said, and he said, well, I think I need to let him go. I said, well, in my experience, your gut's typically never wrong. So if you have an entrepreneur out there that's listening, one of the things I would say is if you're struggling with the decision, you're not sure what to do, listen to your gut.
I really have to work on how I word this question because I got a monkey died story and then I got a
Well, you can take it either way.
Lover of animals, except for that one time when my brother killed my monkey. And then he said he was the sweetest monkey you'd ever know. And I was like, I've never met a monkey. I don't feel like I've ever had the opportunity to develop a relationship.
Yeah. I've met a lot of monkeys, so.
No, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. People, in a lot of cases, it's not that they don't know what to do. It's that they know what they should do and they don't want to do it or don't know how. And they don't trust their instincts in this area. And they trust their instincts in running their business for the most part. They got to where they are because they have good instinct. But when something happens that they just don't want to do, that like desire to not be in conflict, I get that.
Yep, so. That's exactly right.
Okay, so Tina has been speaking some truth into our lives today, and you may want to connect with her. She's a sales and revenue growth coach, again, with Trustpoint Management Group. Tina, if people want to get a hold of you or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn, and then I think in your show notes, my information is there. But LinkedIn is probably the best way, or you can email me at tphillips, and that's PHILLIPS at trustpointllc.com.
Got it. Thanks for coming on today, Tina. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's always great to talk to you, Kristen.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and I appreciate you listening to this episode. I would love to get some great feedback from you. Feel free to leave me a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Also, any ideas or want to follow up on anything that happened in this episode, I would love to receive your emails. You can email me at kristen@ashtoncharles.co. Otherwise, I hope this episode has helped you be great in your business.